In a quiet room, an old clock ticked loudly. My husband John was glued to the TV, ignoring me completely. I felt fed up with all the problems we'd had over the years. John broke the silence, sneering at me. I told him firmly, "I'm leaving." He mocked me, saying I couldn't survive without him. But his words only made me more determined. I couldn't take his neglect and his mom's meddling anymore. It was time to leave and take charge of my life. "I can handle it," I said confidently, standing up. Even though I was nervous about what was next, I felt strong. John's mom, who had been living with us for a while, walked in and saw my packed bags. "Leaving already?" she sneered, thinking I couldn't handle their family issues. I ignored her and grabbed my bags, heading for the door. John just sat there, saying, "You'll be back. You can't do this alone." As I stepped out of the house, a feeling of freedom washed over me. The evening air was refreshing, lifting my spirits. I didn't know where I was going, but for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. For 2 decades, I'd been playing the role of John's obedient wife, feeling more like a convenience than a partner. My son, Elias, was the only source of happiness, but even he couldn't fill the void in my heart. John's mom made things worse with her constant criticism and manipulation. Finding a small, peaceful apartment was a relief. It became my safe space where I could think without judgment. I ignored calls and messages from John and his mom, who begged and threatened me. I was determined to stand my ground and move forward. My coworkers at the library, where I'd worked for a long time, supported me. They had seen how I'd been struggling and were happy to see me finding my strength again. Surrounded by books and understanding friends, I started to feel like myself again and began to believe in a brighter future. While I was settling into my new life, Elias called me, sounding worried. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked. I reassured him, feeling calm for the first time in years. "Yes, Elias, I'm doing better than ever." But then he told me about the problems at home. My decision to leave hadn't gone down well. John had turned to drinking, and his mom wouldn't stop blaming me for leaving. I pushed away the guilt, reminding myself that they needed to respect my decisions. Elias hesitated but then expressed his support for me prioritizing my happiness. Ending the call, I realized this was just the beginning of proving myself to John and his mother, who had underestimated me for too long. It was time they saw I wasn't the obedient woman they thought I was. My journey to self-discovery and independence had only just begun. In my quiet new home, I reflected on the 28 years with John. What started as a promising relationship had soured over time. John's charm and our shared dreams once seemed perfect, but he became more focused on himself, neglecting our family. Elias's birth didn't bring us closer, it highlighted our growing distance. John thought providing money was enough, leaving me to handle the emotional support. His mother, Ariana, was always there, criticizing my parenting. She'd say I was spoiling Elias, insisting John never needed that kind of care. Despite her comments, I focused on raising Elias well. He grew into a thoughtful and independent man, a bright spot in our tense home. Things reached a breaking point when Ariana moved in without asking, claiming she was lonely. Her presence was suffocating. She criticized everything from my cooking to my clothes, hinting that John could have chosen a better partner. This new phase of my life was all about breaking free from years of control and finding myself again, a journey I was just beginning. Ariana's constant criticisms were hard to ignore, but what really shook me was discovering John's deception. I stumbled upon bank statements one day that revealed large amounts of money being spent from our joint account. It turned out this money was being wasted on Ariana's gambling addiction and John's secret indulgences. Whenever I tried to confront them about it, it led to heated arguments, with John always taking his mother's side. "She's my mom, Stella. She needs this," he'd insist, dismissing my concerns. The final straw came when I overheard them plotting to take full control of our finances, pushing me aside and leaving me powerless in my own home. That's when I realized I couldn't keep living under their control. The day I decided to leave, I promised myself I'd make them understand the pain they caused. My plan was simple but powerful, to challenge their egos and their control. I started by legally separating our finances, which shocked John. "What are you doing?" he demanded on the phone. "I'm protecting myself, something I should have done a long time ago," I replied calmly but firmly. Ariana's reaction was even more dramatic. "You ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you," she screamed when she found out. But I didn't let it faze me. The time of me being submissive was over. Now I was setting my own rules, beginning their reckoning. After I took control of my finances, things got chaotic. John and Ariana showed their true colors through their anger. Their attempts to intimidate me with angry phone calls didn't work. "You think you're smart, Stella," John sneered over the phone. "You're nothing without me. You'll come crawling back." "Not a chance, John. I won't let you manipulate me anymore," I shot back, standing my ground. Ariana's threats were even harsher. "You'll regret this, Stella. You've ruined our family." "There was no family to ruin, Ariana. It was all fake," I countered. Despite their threats, I felt free. The fear that used to control me was gone, replaced by a determination for justice. It was time for them to face the consequences. I started by reaching out to old friends and telling them about the lies and manipulation John and Ariana had put me through. My honest revelation spread quickly, tarnishing their once spotless reputations. John, who always cared about his social standing, was embarrassed. "How could you do this to me?" he asked me, shocked. "You did it to yourself," I replied calmly. "I'm just telling the truth." Ariana faced the community's disapproval too. "You've made us outcasts," she accused, seeing it as a fight. But I wasn't afraid of her anymore. "No, Ariana, this isn't a fight. It's about being responsible for your actions," I told her. Seeing their social circles fall apart showed how powerful the truth can be. John's supporters distanced themselves, wary of his damaged reputation, while Ariana lost influence as her gambling problem and manipulative tactics were exposed. But I didn't stop at just exposing them socially. I knew their weak spot was their finances. With the help of a good lawyer, I fought for my fair share of our joint assets. Ariana's debts from gambling and John's mishandling of money were brought to light. The legal battles were tough, but I stayed strong. Their lies were no match for the truth, and I won a significant victory in court. When the judge ruled in my favor, I could see the defeat in John and Ariana's faces. This win meant more than just money. It showed that I was morally right. "You've destroyed everything, Stella," John said, sounding defeated. "No, John, you destroyed our family long ago. I'm just picking up the pieces," I replied, leaving the courtroom feeling free for the first time in years. I was filled with hope for a future without the weight of my past. After the court ruling, I started rebuilding my life with the assets that were rightfully mine. Stepping away from John and Ariana's influence, they couldn't believe the extent of their downfall. This was the start of a new chapter for me, one of independence and self-discovery, ready to embrace whatever came my way. The crumbling of John and Ariana's facades was just the beginning of my journey to rediscover myself and pursue real happiness and freedom. One evening, John called in a fit of desperation. "You can't just change our lives like this, Stella," he pleaded over the phone. "I'm just taking back what's rightfully mine," I replied firmly. "Maybe you should have thought about the consequences before betraying my trust." Ariana, however, took a sneakier approach. She tried to turn family members against me, painting herself as the victim. "You're tearing our family apart, Stella," she accused me when we bumped into each other at the grocery store. "This family was broken long before I left," I replied, refusing to show any sign of distress. I embraced my new freedom, enjoying the ability to control my own life. I cut off their access to me by changing my phone number and found comfort in volunteering at a local shelter, helping others who have faced similar struggles. But my fight for justice wasn't over yet. I found out Ariana planned to challenge the court's decision, hoping to get money for her gambling habit. "You won't win, Stella. I'll make sure you pay," she threatened in a message sent through a relative. In defiance, I strengthened my legal defenses, prepared to counter any challenge she brought forward. The person who once avoided conflict had become a determined advocate for her own rights. Meanwhile, John was crumbling under the pressure. His once spotless reputation was now tarnished, affecting his career. "You've destroyed everything, Stella," he admitted during a moment of reflection. "You brought this on yourself, John." "I just exposed the truth," I replied. As time passed, I watched as their seemingly stable lives fell apart. Ariana's attempt to overturn the court's decision failed, leaving her in financial and social ruin. John's professional life continued to decline, his reputation irreparably damaged. However, I didn't feel any joy in watching their downfall. Though it was an important part of reclaiming myself, it didn't bring me satisfaction. My journey was about healing and finding myself, far beyond their punishment. Regaining my independence and self-respect was a big step, but the wounds from neglect and emotional abuse were still healing. As I rebuilt my life, my main goal was to find inner peace and happiness. My journey was transformative, leading me out of the darkness of my past. I became stronger and more resilient. My story wasn't about revenge, but about freedom, a celebration of the human spirit's ability to overcome challenges. Months had gone by since the court ruled in my favor, but the effects lingered. John and Ariana had drifted from their social circles, shadows of their former selves. Then Elias visited unexpectedly with troubling news. Dad lost his job and his drinking has gotten worse. Grandma lost everything to gambling. They're selling the house, he said, the weight of his words palpable. My heart ached for Elias. Despite the distance, family ties tugged at my emotions. Did we do the right thing? Elias wondered quietly. I reassured him, though with a heavy heart, that we stood up for what was right. They made their choices. I didn't find satisfaction in John and Ariana's downfall. Instead, it reminded me of the importance of living with integrity and respecting others. In the following weeks, rumors spread about the sale of their house, signaling the end of their decline. John struggled to find work because of his damaged reputation, and Ariana was isolated as her addiction became known. One evening, I ran into John during a walk. He looked like a different person, defeated. There's nothing to say, he finally said, defeated. This brief encounter was powerful. It showed how much our lives had changed because of the choices we made. It was here that I found true happiness, peace, and a sense of self that couldn't be shaken. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna, a 33-year-old software developer who thought I'd marry into the perfect family. Spoiler alert, I couldn't have been more wrong. My mom, Janet, is my rock. She's the strongest person I know. She beat cancer while juggling 3 jobs just to put me through college. One of those jobs was cleaning houses, and I couldn't be prouder of her. Now, she runs her own small cleaning business, offering flexible jobs to women who need them. That's my mom, always turning her struggles into ways to help others. When I first met my mother-in-law, Victoria, at their sprawling mansion in Greenwich, I thought she was just a little particular. Your mom must be so proud you've moved up in the world, Victoria said, flashing a polished smile. Actually, she's my inspiration. She built her business from the ground up, I replied. How quaint. Everyone has to start somewhere, I suppose, she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Though some of us were fortunate enough to start at the top, I should have recognized the red flags then. My husband, James, isn't like his mother. Babe, don't let her get to you, he'd say after one of her cutting remarks. Mom can be particular. She did the same thing to my college girlfriend because her dad was just a dentist. James' sister, Emma, was more direct. Oh, that's just how she is about status, Emma told me over lunch. Nothing's ever good enough. She made my best friend cry at my sweet 16 because her dress was off the rack. Does she treat everyone like they're beneath her? I asked. Just wait for the family gatherings, Emma replied with a sigh. That's when she really shines. Last Christmas, she made our cousin's wife serve drinks because she used to bartend in college. I vented to my mom about it over Sunday brunch. Honey, some people are so empty inside, they need to make others feel small just to feel big, she said, her voice steady as ever. I just want things to work out. James is great, and his dad, Robert, seems nice enough. Robert's nice, but spineless, Emma said when I mentioned it the next day. Mom controls everything. Parties, charities, their entire social circle. She even picks out his clothes and tells him who he can golf with. How do you handle it? I asked. I moved 3 states away, Emma said, stirring her coffee nervously. But now that you're here, she hesitated. Just watch your back. Victoria has a way of making problems disappear. My last serious boyfriend, he got a dream job offer in Singapore after Mom decided he wasn't Miller material. I brushed it off, determined to focus on my new life with James. We were happy in our little bubble, but Victoria's perfect family parties were impossible to avoid. James, sweetheart, the Memorial Day gathering is coming up, Victoria announced over dinner one evening. Anna, dear, do try to dress appropriately this time. Those Target dresses you favor are better suited to casual outings. My clothes are fine, Victoria, I replied firmly. I dress professionally for my job at a major tech company. Of course they're fine for your usual circles. but we have standards to maintain. The Vanderbilts will be there, and you know how they talk. James squeezed my hand under the table, and I squeezed back, neither of us realizing how that gathering would change everything. Just be yourself, my mom told me when I called her that night, tears in my eyes. If she can't appreciate you, that's her loss. You're a successful woman with a good heart. If only I'd known then what Victoria had planned for that party. I was still trying to play nice, still hoping to be accepted into a family that looked so perfect on the outside. But sometimes the prettiest facades hide the ugliest truths. The Miller family's facade was about to crack wide open. The Memorial Day party was in full swing at their estate, with champagne flowing and guests mingling around the garden fountain. When Victoria approached me at the Memorial Day party, she carried something behind her back. Her smile was as polished as ever, but there was a glint of malice in her eyes. "Oh, Anna dear, I have just the thing for you," she said sweetly, drawing the attention of the nearby guests. Slowly, she revealed what she was holding. A stack of cleaning rags, neatly folded and tied with a ribbon, as if they were some sort of prize. The chatter around us died instantly. "Since your mother was so experienced in this area," she began, her voice dripping with mock sincerity, "I thought you might help ensure everything stays spotless during the party. It's in your blood after all." My hands trembled as I stared at her, barely able to process what I was hearing. "Excuse me?" "Well," she continued, unbothered by the growing tension, "your mother did spend years scrubbing toilets, didn't she? Even during her unfortunate medical situation. Such dedication to menial work is admirable." Before I could find my voice, James rushed over. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Just trying to make Anna feel useful, darling," she said, her tone so saccharine it made my stomach churn. "We all know she's more comfortable with domestic tasks." Emma appeared at my side, her face a mask of anger. "You've gone too far, Mother." "I'm simply acknowledging her heritage," Victoria replied with feigned innocence. "Not everyone can be born into proper society." The words pierced through me like daggers, but I stood tall, my voice rising to match the fury in my chest. "My mother beat cancer while keeping me in school," I said firmly. "She built a successful business from nothing. What exactly have you built, Victoria?" Victoria's smile faltered, replaced by a flash of fury. "How dare you speak to me that way in my own home?" She turned to James. "Are you just going to stand there and let her insult me?" "Stop it, Mom. You're embarrassing yourself," James snapped. "Robert," Victoria shrieked, turning to her husband, who was loitering nearby with a drink in hand. "Come control your son." Robert wandered over, looking more annoyed than concerned. Now, everyone calm down," he said, waving his free hand lazily. "I'm sure Victoria meant no harm." "No harm?" James said, his voice sharp. "She just insulted my wife and her mother in front of everyone." "She's simply concerned about appearances," Robert mumbled, avoiding his wife's glare. "Like she was concerned when she sabotaged Emma's engagement," I shot back. The crowd gasped audibly, and all eyes turned to Victoria. Her face turned ashen, her poise cracking. "Who told you about that?" she hissed. "I did," Emma said, stepping forward. Her voice was calm, but her hands were clenched into fists. "I told her everything, about Thomas's mysterious job offer, about all your so-called interventions over the years." Victoria's composure shattered. "Those decisions were for the good of this family." "No, Mother," Emma retorted, her voice cold. "They were for your ego." Victoria turned to the gathered crowd, her desperation showing. "Everyone, please excuse this unfortunate display. Some people simply don't understand our ways." "Your ways?" I laughed, unable to hold back anymore. "You mean manipulation and cruelty." Victoria's face hardened, and she turned to a nearby staff member. "Security," she barked, her voice sharp. "Please escort my daughter-in-law out. She's clearly had too much champagne." I met her glare head-on. "I haven't had a single drink, Victoria, but keep trying to spin this. You've just shown everyone exactly who you are." James took my hand, his jaw tight with anger. "We're leaving," he said, "but this isn't over." Victoria's voice rose in panic. "If you leave with her, don't bother coming back." "Gladly," James replied, his voice steady. "I choose my wife." As we turned to leave, Emma stepped forward. "I'm done too, Mother. Enjoy your perfect little world, alone." We walked out together, leaving Victoria standing frozen, still clutching those ridiculous cleaning rags. Around her, the guests whispered, her carefully crafted image crumbling in front of the very people she had worked so hard to impress. But this was just the beginning. I didn't know it at the time, but Emma was sitting on information that would bring Victoria's entire empire crashing down. After the disastrous Memorial Day party, Emma invited us to her apartment. As soon as we sat down, she opened her laptop, her face a mix of determination and anger. "Remember when I worked at Dad's company last summer?" she said, clicking through folders. "I found something interesting in the accounting records." "What kind of records?" I leaned in, my heart racing. Emma turned the screen toward us. "Look at these transfers. Mom's been siphoning money from Dad's company through fake charity organizations she created." James's eyes widened as he stared at the numbers. $500,000. Where's it all going? Emma snorted. Designer clothes, secret spa trips, and get this, paying private investigators to dig up dirt on anyone who marries into the family. She hired private investigators? I asked, stunned. Oh, it gets worse. Remember my ex, Thomas? She paid his boss to offer him that job in Singapore. She wanted him gone because he wasn't Miller material. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from my boss popped up. "We received an anonymous email claiming you stole proprietary code." My stomach dropped. You've got to be kidding me. She's trying to ruin my career now. Classic move, Emma said, pulling up more documents. She did the same thing to Dad's secretary last year when she thought the woman was getting too friendly with him. James was pacing the room, running his hands through his hair. "We need to take this to Dad." "Wait," I said, checking my phone again. A text from my mom appeared. "Victoria's been posting horrible things about me online. Fake accounts calling me a gold digger who faked cancer for money." Emma's jaw tightened. "She's been doing that for years. Look at this." She opened another folder filled with screenshots. Fake reviews tanking businesses, burner phones she uses to harass people, even anonymous complaints filed against family members. James pointed at a bank statement on the screen. "She's draining Dad's retirement accounts for all of this." Before we could process the full scope of it, my mom called. "Someone just contacted all my cleaning clients, telling them I'm under investigation for theft," she said, her voice trembling. "That's it," Emma snapped, grabbing her keys. "We're taking this to Michael." Michael was Dad's business partner, and he'd already been suspicious of Victoria's spending for months. "He'll help us," Emma said confidently. "These fake charities are using the company's tax ID numbers. It's all fraud." Just then, James's phone buzzed. "Mom's trying to get Dad to make me sign a postnup," he said, reading the text aloud. "Says she doesn't trust me with the family money." "More like she doesn't want anyone digging into where the money's going," Emma said bitterly, closing her laptop. "She's getting sloppy, but we need to be careful." Too late for careful, I set my voice steady. She's been destroying lives for years. It's time to end it. At Victoria's annual charity gala, our carefully constructed world began to crumble. The night started as usual, lavish decorations, expensive wine, and a crowd of socialites hanging on her every word. Victoria stood at the podium, accepting yet another award for her so-called philanthropic work, when Michael interrupted. "I have some questions about the Miller Family Foundation's finances," he said, standing in the middle of the crowd. Victoria froze, her smile faltering. "This isn't the time or place, Michael," she said sharply. "Actually, it's the perfect place," he countered. "Would you like to explain where the $500,000 went?" The room went silent as Robert stepped forward, confusion etched across his face. "What's he talking about, Victoria?" "Nothing, dear," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "Just a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," Emma said, stepping into the room with a stack of papers, "is that we trusted you all these years." Victoria's composure cracked as she looked around for support. "Security," she barked. "Remove them." "They won't help you," Michael said, holding up his phone. "The FBI is already reviewing the evidence of your embezzlement." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Victoria gripped the podium, her knuckles white. "Robert, darling, don't listen to them." "Like you didn't want me to listen when the secretary tried to warn me about missing funds." Robert's voice was cold. "Or when our accountant quit suddenly last year." "I did everything for this family," Victoria cried. You mean like hiring people to destroy my mom's business? I stepped forward, my voice steady. Or creating fake social media accounts to harass people? Victoria's mask shattered completely. You gold-digging little. Careful, mother, James said, cutting her off. The reporters you invited are still here, and they're still recording. The whispers around us grew louder as her precious social circle began backing away. You can't prove anything, Victoria spat, desperation in her eyes. Actually, Michael said, projecting documents onto the screen behind her, we can prove everything. Robert stared at the evidence, his face pale. Our retirement accounts, empty? I needed that money. Victoria pleaded. For what? Emma demanded. To ruin lives, to buy silence, to destroy anyone who threatened your perfect image. The murmurs turned to open disdain as guests started heading for the exits. Robert, please, Victoria begged, reaching for him. Save it for your lawyer, he said coldly, stepping away. I want a divorce. And the board wants your resignation, Michael added. Effective immediately. Victoria tried one last time. I can explain everything. Like you explained away Thomas, Emma said, her voice breaking. Or Olivia's restaurant, or every other life you've ruined? Comments for part 2. I did it because I love you, Victoria cried. No, James said, wrapping his arm around me. You did it because you're toxic, and we're done. As the police arrived, Victoria's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Her social circle abandoned her reputation shattered, and her empire of lies exposed. My name's Lois Carter, 33, a single mom with an extraordinary 8-year-old daughter, Zoe. We live in a snug little apartment, not much to brag about, but it's home. I gave up college when I found out I was pregnant. Not my proudest moment, sure, but I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat for Zoe. She's my world. I work as a waitress at a diner downtown. The hours are long, the tips inconsistent, but it keeps the lights on and food in the fridge. Plus, my boss is pretty understanding when Zoe's school commitments need me to switch shifts. And speaking of school, my girl is a force to be reckoned with. Zoe's the kind of kid who soaks up knowledge like a sponge. Her teachers constantly rave about her talent in science and math. Just last week, she burst through the door, thrilled about an experiment they'd done with baking soda and vinegar. Mom, did you know that when you mix baking soda and vinegar, it makes carbon dioxide? That's what makes the volcano explode. She gushed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I couldn't help but laugh. Looks like I've got a future scientist on my hands. But life's no fairy tale. Looming over everything is Regina Blackwood, my ex-mother-in-law. Picture the most judgmental, snobby person you can think of, and then multiply it by 10. That's Regina. She's rich, lives in a sprawling mansion, and never misses an opportunity to remind me that she used to be some big-shot university professor. Lois, dear, she'll say with her signature fake smile, don't you think it's time you went back to school? A waitress's salary hardly provides for a growing child. Every word drips with condescension. I bite my tongue and respond. We're doing just fine, Regina, but thanks for your concern. Thankfully, I've got my own cheerleaders. My best friend Alexis is my rock. Whether it's lending me an ear after a Regina showdown or showing up with a bottle of wine, she's always in my corner. Girl, Regina's just bitter because you and Zoe are incredible, she'll say with a smirk. And then there's Mr. Chen, our retired teacher neighbor who's become Zoe's unofficial tutor. When I'm working late, he helps her with her homework, often singing her praises. Miss Carter, he said one day, beaming, your daughter grasped long division faster than some of my high school students. Thank you, Mr. Chen, I replied, my heart swelling with pride. I don't know what we'd do without you. But today wasn't about allies. It was about braving the lion's den, Regina's mansion. The drive there felt endless, the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on me. Zoe sat in the backseat, flipping through her science textbook. You ready for this, sweetie? I asked, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. She shrugged. I guess. Do you think Grandma will like my science project? I forced a smile. I'm sure she'll be impressed. Pulling up to Regina's ostentatious estate, I swallowed a lump of resentment. Her world was gilded, so far removed from our modest apartment. Lois, darling, late as usual, Regina called out as we stepped through the grand doors, her voice laced with syrupy disdain. Traffic, I muttered, ushering Zoe inside. The gathering was already in full swing, high society types mingling with family members. My eyes landed on Tyler, my ex, chatting with some cousins. He glanced at me and offered a weak nod. Grandma, I got an A on my science project. Zoe's voice was bright, but Regina's smile was ice cold. Did you now? How surprising. I felt my jaw clench. Zoe's been working really hard. Mr. Chen's been helping her study. Ah, yes, the neighbor, Regina said with a dismissive wave. Well, even a broken clock is right twice a day. The room quieted. Eyes turned toward us, and I felt the heat rising in my cheeks. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, my voice low. Regina didn't miss a beat. Oh, nothing, dear. It's just, well, given your limited educational background, it's rather surprising that Zoe would excel so dramatically in academics. The silence in the room was deafening. My face burned with humiliation and fury. Excuse me? I managed, my voice tight. Regina shrugged, her lips curving into a smug smile. Let's be honest, Lois. You're a college dropout working as a waitress. It's hardly the environment to foster academic excellence. One has to wonder if, perhaps there's been some assistance beyond mere studying. I froze, stunned. Are you accusing my daughter of cheating? Regina's expression didn't waver. I'm simply saying it's unlikely for a child of your background to suddenly become a prodigy. I was shaking with rage. How dare you? Zoe is brilliant and hardworking. Just because I didn't finish college doesn't mean I can't raise an intelligent child. Mom? Zoe's small voice broke through my fury. She stood beside me, her wide, tear-filled eyes searching my face. Am I stupid? My heart shattered. I knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug. No, baby, no. You're smart and amazing. Don't listen to her. I glanced around, searching for Tyler. Surely he'd say something to defend his daughter, but he just stood there, hands in his pockets, avoiding my gaze. I straightened, locking eyes with Regina. This is unacceptable. You can insult me all you want, but don't you dare attack my daughter's intelligence or integrity. Regina raised an eyebrow, unbothered. Perhaps if you'd finished your education, you'd understand the statistical improbability off. That's enough, I snapped, cutting her off. Come on, Zoe, we're leaving. As we walked to the door, Regina's voice followed us like a sneer. Running away won't change the facts, Lois. Some of us are simply meant for greater things. In the car, Zoe sat quietly, sniffling now and then. You know Grandma's wrong, right? I said softly. You're incredibly smart, and I'm so proud of you. Then why did she say those things? She asked, her voice trembling. I sighed, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Some people can't see past their own prejudices, but we'll prove her wrong, okay? Over the next year, I poured everything into proving Regina wrong, not for her, but for me and Zoe. Between double shifts at the diner, late-night study sessions, and stolen moments with my daughter, I worked toward my secret goal, earning my degree in computer science. One evening, Alexis showed up with takeout, eyeing the mess of textbooks and papers strewn across my kitchen table. Girl, you look like you haven't slept in days. Feels that way, I said, rubbing my eyes. But I'm so close, Lex, I can taste it. I still can't believe you haven't told Regina or Tyler, she said, smirking. I wish I could have seen her face when she mocked your limited education. I can't wait for her to eat her words. I chuckled. It's going to be epic, but I don't want to tell Zoe yet, not until it's done. I don't want her to get her hopes up in case something goes wrong. As the science fair approached, Zoe became more anxious. One night, I found her crying over her project notes. Hey, sweetie, what's wrong? I asked, sitting beside her. Grandma called again, Zoe whispered, her lip trembling. She said I shouldn't get my hopes up about winning. That it'll be embarrassing when I lose. My blood boiled. I cupped her chin gently, forcing her to meet my eyes. Zoe, listen to me. Your grandmother is wrong. You're brilliant and this project is amazing. Don't let her or anyone else tell you otherwise. The next day, I received an unexpected call from Mrs. Peterson, the school administrator. Her voice was low, hesitant. Mrs. Carter, I thought you should know. Mrs. Blackwood came by the school yesterday. She tried to bribe Mr. Johnson to lower Zoe's grades. I nearly dropped the phone. She did what? Mr. Johnson refused, of course. I thanked Mrs. Peterson, my mind racing. This was a new low, even for Regina. Over the next few days, I quietly collected evidence of her sabotage. Emails, recorded phone calls, witness statements. Each piece of proof was tucked away carefully, a shield for Zoe if I ever needed it. Finally, the day of the science fair arrived. Zoe's project, a stunning model on renewable energy showcasing solar panels, wind turbines, and a miniature hydroelectric dam, stood proudly among the other displays. She had poured her heart into it, and I couldn't have been prouder. When the judge announced, and the first place goes to Zoe Carter, the auditorium erupted in applause. Zoe's face lit up as she stepped forward to accept her ribbon, her smile radiant. My heart swelled with pride, and tears stemmed my eyes. But the celebration was short-lived. "This is preposterous." Regina's sharp voice sliced through the cheers like a knife. "There's no way she could have done this on her own. She must have cheated." The room fell silent. Zoe's smile faltered, and I saw her clutch the ribbon tighter, her hands trembling. Tears welled in her wide, innocent eyes, and my blood boiled. "How dare you?" I hissed, turning to face Regina. "Your own granddaughter wins, and this is how you react." Regina's face was red with indignation. "Oh, please. We all know this is beyond her capabilities, and yours. For that matter, who really did this project? That meddling neighbor of yours?" I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "Regina, Zoe worked tirelessly on this project with guidance from Mr. Chen and me. Just because you refuse to believe in her abilities doesn't make them any less real. I demand an investigation." Regina snapped, looking around for support. But instead of backing her, the other parents and teachers were inching away, exchanging uncomfortable glances. "That's enough," I said firmly, locking eyes with her. "Regina, we need to talk. Now." I led her to a quiet corner of the school, my mind made up. Enough was enough. It was time to put her in her place for Zoe's sake and my own. "I've had enough of your games," I began, pulling a folder from my bag. Inside was everything. Evidence of her sabotage attempts, including her bribe to Mr. Johnson. Regina's smug expression faltered. "What is this?" she stammered. "Oh, just proof of you trying to undermine your granddaughter," I said coolly. "And that's not all." From another pocket, I pulled out my diploma. "I've been working toward this in secret, studying online, juggling jobs, and raising Zoe. I graduated last month with a degree in computer science." Regina's jaw dropped. That's impossible." "Oh, it's very possible," I replied, feeling a surge of triumph. Just then, Tyler approached, concern etched on his face. "What's going on?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. I laid it all out: my studies, Regina's actions, and the lengths she had gone to sabotage her own granddaughter. Tyler's face paled as I spoke. "Mom, how could you?" he whispered, his voice thick with disbelief. Regina sputtered, searching for a defense, but there was none. Meanwhile, whispers spread among the other parents, and the carefully constructed facade Regina had maintained began to crumble. "And one more thing," I added, my voice steady. "I've been offered a position at Tech Innovate, a senior role with a salary that'll give Zoe and me a fresh start. We're leaving this behind." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Zoe and I moved into a beautiful new home, leaving behind the cramped apartment that had seen so many struggles. Regina faced social isolation as word of her actions spread. Her high society friends distanced themselves, and her influence waned. As for Tyler, he started therapy and reached out, wanting to rebuild his relationship with Zoe and me. "I'm sorry," he said during one visit. "I should have stood up to her years ago." I nodded but kept my distance. "You should have. Let's take it slow for Zoe's sake." That summer, we hosted a housewarming party. Alexis helped decorate with colorful streamers and fairy lights while Mr. Chen brought his famous dumplings. Zoe buzzed with excitement, showing off her room and the garden she'd already started planting. "To new beginnings." Alexis toasted, raising her glass as everyone cheered. Zoe hugged me tightly, her eyes shining with pride. "Mom, you're my hero." I hugged her back, tears threatening to spill. "No, Zoe. You're mine." "Hi, I'm Norma." Another successful quarter. "The Meridian chain is thriving under your leadership," Marcus said, sliding a stack of financial reports across my desk. His voice carried its usual steadiness. But today there was a flicker of something more. Admiration, perhaps. "Thanks to the whole team," I replied, brushing my fingers over the photo of my late husband James. His bright blue eyes smiled back at me from the frame, a constant reminder of the man who had built this life with me. These numbers would make him proud. Before the ache in my chest could deepen, a burst of energy swept into the room. "Mommy, look what we made." Emma and Ethan, my 6-year-old twins, barreled in, their faces alight with pride as they held up their latest masterpiece. Their father's bright blue eyes sparkled back at me through theirs. "They're beautiful sweethearts," I said warmly. "Why don't you show them to Aunt Bella? She's in the conference room." As they dashed off, Diana, my best friend and legal advisor, poked her head in. "Norma, do you have a minute? We need to discuss the new property acquisition." Running a luxury hotel chain hadn't been my dream when I married James Mitchell. His father had built the Meridian Empire from the ground up, and after James's tragic car accident 2 years ago, I found myself thrust into the role of co-owner alongside my sister-in-law, Isabella, Bella to everyone. "The board meeting's about to start," Bella announced, striding into the room with her husband Robert. She set down a folder, her polished smile hiding something sharper. "I've made some adjustments to your proposal." "What adjustments?" "We agreed on the terms yesterday. I think we should reconsider the expansion into Miami. The numbers don't add up." There it was again, another subtle dig. Bella had been my rock after James's death, helping with the twins and guiding me through the business. But recently, there was a shift, a tension between us. "The Miami project stays on the agenda," I said firmly. "The board already approved the initial assessment." Bella's smile tightened. "Fine. By the way, I've reassigned some of your key staff to the Chicago property." Without consulting me, my voice sharpened. "I'm the CEO, Bella. Those decisions need my approval." "Just trying to help, dear. You've seemed overwhelmed lately, with the twins and everything." Robert shot me an apologetic glance, his eyes filled with a silent warning. He'd been doing that a lot lately, like he knew something wasn't right. That evening, as I watched Emma and Ethan play in our penthouse apartment above the flagship hotel, an unsettling thought gnawed at me. The Meridian legacy was James's gift to our children, and I had to protect it. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that Bella wanted more, much more. "Mommy, when is Aunt Bella coming to play with us again?" Emma asked, her innocent question piercing through my thoughts. "Soon, sweetheart. Very soon." If only I had known what those words would come to mean. A brewing storm. The next morning, Marcus stormed into my office, his usually calm demeanor shattered. "Norma, we need to talk now." He clutched a stack of papers, his face pale. "These numbers don't make sense. Look at these transfers from our main accounts." I scanned the documents, my stomach twisting. Millions of dollars were missing, siphoned through a labyrinth of shell companies. "All these accounts are under Bella's oversight," I whispered, my voice hollow. Before Marcus could respond, Karen, my longtime assistant, entered, her expression uneasy. "Mrs. Mitchell, several department heads asked me to inform you that Miss Isabella has called an emergency board meeting. Without you." "What?" My pulse quickened. "She can't do that." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from the twins' school. Emma had fallen down the stairs. When I arrived, the nurse explained, "Someone called, claiming you authorized them to pick up the twins early. We refused and Emma got upset." That night, Robert appeared at my door, his face drawn with worry. "Norma, I need to tell you something about Bella," he said, his voice trembling. "She's not sleeping. She's making strange phone calls at night. I found gambling receipts." I stared at him stunned. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because," Robert swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper, "I'm scared." The breaking point. "Please don't let her know I told you," Robert pleaded, his voice trembling. "She gets explosive when she feels cornered." His words haunted me all night, but I had no idea just how quickly Bella's madness would escalate. The next morning, Ethan's allergic medication went missing, right before he suffered a severe reaction. If Diana hadn't been visiting with her spare EpiPen, things could have ended tragically. "This isn't a coincidence," Diana said firmly as we sat in my office later that day. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. I did some digging. Bella worked at 3 companies before marrying Robert. All 3 reported major fraud cases right after she left. And the evidence? It disappeared. Every time. I didn't have time to process Diana's revelation before the head of maintenance knocked on my door, his expression grim. Mrs. Mitchell, we found something strange in the twins' playroom. The window safety locks were tampered with. My heart plummeted. Within hours, I had cameras installed throughout the penthouse and my office. That evening, I uncovered something even more disturbing. Every senior staff member had received emails, supposedly from me, about my stress-related issues and erratic behavior. She's trying to push you out, Diana warned. This isn't just about power anymore, Norma. I think the twins are in danger. I stayed up all night reviewing security footage. At 3 a.m., I froze. Bella, in my private office, accessing my computer, copying files. The next morning, Emma's innocent voice shattered my fragile composure. Mommy, why was Aunt Bella in our room last night? My blood ran cold. What do you mean, sweetie? She was standing by our beds, Emma whispered, eyes wide. She looked scary. This wasn't just about the business. Bella wanted everything, and she didn't care who she hurt to get it. The security company called shortly after. Someone had tried to disable the cameras in the twins' wing. The evidence was mounting, but one wrong move and I could lose everything, or worse, someone could get hurt. I glanced at my children, blissfully unaware of the storm closing in. I needed proof. Real proof, and I had to get it before Bella made her next move. The inferno. The Tokyo deal isn't worth your personal attention, Norma. I can handle it, Bella insisted, her smile flawless but her tone sending chills down my spine. I've already booked the flight, I lied. I'll be back tomorrow night. Instead, I switched flights and returned early. My security team texted about unusual activity in the penthouse. Bella had arrived unannounced. As I stepped off the elevator, the smell of smoke hit me. Then I heard the screams. Mommy, help, we can't get out. Heart pounding, I raced down the hallway. Smoke seeped from under the door next to the playroom. I grabbed the handle, it wouldn't budge. Emma, Ethan, stay away from the door. Security is coming. Poor Norma, always rushing back to those brats. I spun around to see Bella emerge from the shadows, eerily calm. You should have stayed in Tokyo, she said, her voice cold. What have you done? I demanded. The key, Bella. Now. You still don't get it, she sneered. I had it all planned perfectly. A tragic accident while Mommy was away. I would have inherited everything, the business, the properties, even their trust funds. The smoke thickened. My twins' coughs grew fainter. Security, break down the door. I screamed into my phone. Bella laughed, the sound chilling. Just like James' accident, cut brake lines are so reliable. But Robert, he couldn't keep his mouth shut about that one, could he? Time stopped. James's death, it wasn't an accident. The reckoning. Later, at the hospital, as the twins were treated for smoke inhalation, the police uncovered damning evidence in Bella's private office. Detailed plans, forged documents, and photos of the twins' routines. She had been planning this for months. A detective approached me, his expression grave. Mrs. Mitchell, we found something else. Documents about your husband's accident. Surveillance photos of your children dating back months. There were previous attempts. The accidents. The missing medication. The tampered locks. It all made horrifying sense. We've got everything we need now, he continued. Text messages, security footage, financial records, Robert's testimony. I looked at my sleeping twins, their innocent faces still bearing traces of fear. For years, I'd shared my life, my home, and my family with a monster. But no more? No more playing nice, I whispered, gripping Emma's hand. She tried to kill my babies. She murdered their father. She's going to pay for everything. The cost of betrayal. First, I had to make sure my children were safe. I didn't know then that Bella's attempt to destroy us would lead to her own spectacular downfall. And it wouldn't come from me at all. Package all the evidence and send copies to every relevant authority. Diana instructed her team. Financial crimes. Attempted murder. Everything. While Bella sat in jail, awaiting trial for the fire, an anonymous tip landed on the FBI's desk. The rabbit hole went deeper than anyone imagined. International money laundering through our hotels. I sat across from a federal agent, stunned. Your sister-in-law was working with dangerous people, he explained. She used your properties to launder millions for gambling syndicates. Then Bella's world truly began to collapse. Her so-called friends in the gambling world turned on her the moment their money disappeared. That crazy woman took us for millions. One of them confessed to save himself. The feds uncovered offshore accounts, fake identities, and years of elaborate schemes. Robert, finally breaking his silence, filed for divorce. In his testimony, he revealed everything. She bragged about killing James, he admitted, his voice cracking. Said it was so easy to tamper with the brakes, to make it look like an accident. She laughed about it. The evidence was overwhelming. Not even Bella's expensive lawyers could save her now. Guilty on all counts, the judge declared. The defendant is sentenced to 25 years without the possibility of parole. I watched as Bella was led away in handcuffs, her once polished designer image reduced to prison orange. She screamed obscenities, blaming everyone but herself. The aftermath. 5 years passed quickly. The twins turned 11, growing stronger and wiser from our ordeal. Without Bella's poison, the Meridian Empire flourished. We opened 3 new properties, including a resort in Tokyo, ironically the place Bella had tried to send me that fatal day. Last week, I received a letter from her prison chaplain. Bella was begging for forgiveness, claiming she had changed. I didn't need to read past the first line. I tore it up and tossed it away. "Mrs. Mitchell, your next appointment is here," my assistant called. I smiled at Emma and Ethan. "Come on, kids, time for your first real board meeting." As we walked into the conference room where Bella once plotted against us, I saw my children's excited faces. They were alive, safe, thriving. James would be proud. The empire he built wasn't just surviving, it was growing. And his killer? She was rotting in prison, forgotten by everyone who once feared her. That's the thing about karma. It always collects its debts. Sometimes you just have to be patient and let toxic people destroy themselves. I turned to my twins. Ready to learn the family business? Ready, Mom. We'll make it even better than before. And we did. That's what real family does. We build each other up, not tear each other down. Bella learned that lesson the hard way, from behind bars. But what would you do if someone you completely trusted, someone who helped you through your grief and played a loving onto your children, was secretly plotting to murder your family? Could you ever forgive them? Even years later, when they beg for forgiveness from prison. Hey everyone, I'm Angela Williams. Ever wondered what it's like to own a mansion, only to be treated like a servant in it? That's my life. But trust me, things are about to get very interesting. Living in a sprawling Victorian mansion on Martha's Vineyard sounds like a dream, right? Except when you're secretly funding your family's lavish lifestyle and getting treated like yesterday's trash in return. At 27, I'm a successful real estate agent by day and an invisible daughter by night. Angela, didn't I tell you to use the service entrance? We have guests coming. My mother, Eleanor, snaps from the grand staircase. This is her new favorite refrain since marrying Richard 3 years ago. The same mother who used to cuddle me during thunderstorms, now acting like I'm unworthy of stepping into her precious foyer. But Mom, I bite my tongue. She doesn't know. None of them do. My grandfather left me everything. The mansion, the properties, the fortune, all in secret. He knew how money changes people, and looking at her now, he wasn't wrong. Darling, is Marcus joining us for dinner tonight? Richard's smooth voice slithers into the room as he adjusts his Rolex, probably bought with my money. He's been asking about you, he adds, flashing a smile that makes my skin crawl. I'm not interested in your business partner, Richard. Watch your tone, young lady, my mother snaps. Behind her, my stepsister Madison smirks from behind her phone. OMG, Angela, she snickers. Not everyone can marry to money like Mom. Some of us have to settle. Her fake sympathy makes me want to scream, if she only knew. Later in the kitchen, Sarah, our housekeeper, who feels more like family than anyone else here, slips me a coffee. Your grandfather would be proud of how you're handling this, honey. But are you sure you want to keep paying for their lifestyle? Just a little longer, Sarah. Everything's about to change. My phone buzzes. It's James, my best friend since 3rd grade. Angela, you won't believe what I found about Richard's business dealings. Tell me over lunch tomorrow. Usual spot. Sure, but your family won't approve of you meeting me at a diner, he jokes. Good thing I stopped caring about their approval around the same time Mom started caring more about Richard's social calendar than me, I reply. Madison saunters into the kitchen, still glued to her phone. Still hanging out with that nobody James. You know, Marcus asked about your schedule. Maybe I'll tell him you're free Friday. Back off, Madison. I mean it. Or what? You'll tattle to mommy, please. She barely remembers you exist as daddy came along. I gripped the counter, feeling the weight of the property deeds hidden upstairs. Soon, they'll all know exactly who they've been stepping on. But for now, I plaster on a fake smile and retreat to my room. As I pass the family portrait in the hall, I notice the arrangement, Mom standing tall with Richard and Madison, while I'm shoved into the corner like an afterthought. My phone lights up with another text from James, ready to show them who really owns their precious lifestyle. Not yet, I reply, but soon, very soon. Little do they know their perfect world is on the brink of collapse, and I'll be watching from the top floor of the mansion when it does. Later, the sound of the slap echoed through the kitchen, my cheeks stinging from Mom's diamond-clad hand. "How dare you bring that nobody into my house?" she hissed. James stood frozen in the doorway, breakfast forgotten. "It's 7 a.m., Eleanor," he said calmly. "Angela lives here too. Not for long if she keeps disrespecting this family's standards," she spat, grabbing my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin. "Marcus has been asking about you, Angela, and instead of pursuing a respectable relationship, you're entertaining this." "This what, Mom? A friend who actually cares about me?" Her glare burned through me as she stormed out. That evening, Madison's poison spread through our social circle like wildfire. While I reviewed property documents in my room, Richard barged in unannounced. "We need to discuss your future," he declared. "What future?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Marcus is prepared to offer you a position in the merged company. After the wedding." "What wedding?" "Don't play coy. It's time you contributed to this family. The merger with Marcus's firm could save our financial situation." Financial situation? That caught my attention. As Richard rambled about arrangements, I spotted a bank statement peeking from his pocket. When he left, I texted James, "Need your hacking skills. Something's wrong with Mom's trust fund." James called back immediately. "Angela, you need to see this. Richard's been draining Eleanor's accounts, offshore holdings, fake companies. She's about to lose everything. Everything she thinks she has." I whispered, touching my bruised cheek. "Help me nail him, James." But before we could act, Mom burst into my room, fury etched on her face. "You've been snooping into our finances?" she shrieked, ripping through my closet like a woman possessed. "Ungrateful little witch. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done. Like replacing my father with a calm man. Like letting Madison spread lies about me. Your father was weak," he snapped. "Richard gives us class, status, everything you're too pathetic to appreciate." She grabbed my laptop, her grip unrelenting, and raised it as if to smash it against the wall. "Mom, stop," I cried, panic lacing my voice. "Why?" "So you can keep conspiring with James, planning to ruin my marriage." She swung the laptop toward the wall, but Sarah rushed in just in time, catching it midair. "Mrs. Williams, the guests are arriving for dinner," Sarah said firmly, her tone calm but commanding. Mom froze, her expression shifting instantly to her perfect society smile. "We'll finish this discussion later," she said, smoothing her hair as if nothing had happened. She strode downstairs, ready to play the perfect hostess, leaving me amidst the wreckage of my shredded clothes. I sank to the floor, hands trembling, and texted James, "Get everything you have on Richard. It's time." Sarah knelt beside me, her voice a soft whisper. "Your grandfather's study. There's something in the safe you need to see." I nodded, standing on shaky legs. In the mirror, Mom's handprint was still visible on my cheek, a cruel reminder of the price I pay for speaking the truth. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from the people who should love us most. But tonight, that changes. Tonight, I stop being the victim in my own home. At midnight, the door to my room crashed open. Mom stood in the doorway, trembling, clutching my grandfather's property papers in her manicured hands. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice cracking. "What is this?" "Careful with those, Mother," I said coolly. "They're worth more than your entire wardrobe." Richard appeared behind her, his face red with fury. "You little liar. All this time. All this time." "What, Richard?" I snapped. "While you were draining Mom's trust fund. While you were pushing me to marry Marcus to save your pathetic business." Madison stormed in, phone in hand, ready to record the drama. "Daddy, what's happening?" "What's happening?" I said, my voice steady. is that your precious daddy married Mom thinking she was the heir to my grandfather's fortune. But surprise, I own everything. The mansion, the properties, the money. All of it. That's impossible. Mom's voice broke. Dad would never. Never what? Protect his assets from a daughter who abandoned her child for status. He watched you change, Mom. Watched you choose Richard and Madison over me. So he made sure his fortune went to someone who actually cared about family, not social climbing. Richard lunged toward me, but a firm hand caught his shoulder. Marcus stepped into the room, James right behind him. I wouldn't do that, Richard, Marcus said coldly. The FBI tends to frown on assaulting people while under investigation for fraud. Madison's phone clattered to the floor. What investigation? She whispered. James pulled out his laptop, his expression deadly calm. Show them, Marcus. With pleasure, Marcus replied. You see, Richard, while you were busy trying to force a merger through Angela, you didn't realize I was working with a forensic accounting team. We have everything, the embezzlement, the offshore accounts, even Madison's little sabotage campaign against Angela's real estate firm. Richard's face turned purple with rage. You were working with them, he spat, pointing at me. No, Richard, I said with icy clarity. They were working for me. This is my house. Remember? Mom collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her face. Angela, baby, I'm so sorry. I remember when you were little how we used to bake cookies in the kitchen. Remember? We can fix this. Start over. Like you tried to fix my face this morning, or my reputation last week. Save your Oscar performance, Mom. I've watched you choose them over me for 3 years. But I'm your mother, she cried. No, I said, my voice unwavering. A mother protects her child. A mother loves unconditionally. You're just another social climber who got played at her own game. Richard made a dash for the door, but security guards were waiting. Marcus nodded to the officers. Mr. Thompson, you're under arrest for financial fraud and embezzlement, one of them said. As they led Richard away, Madison screamed, This is all your fault. I'll tell everyone what you did. Go ahead, I said calmly. Tell them how you sabotaged your stepsister while living in her house, spending her money. I'm sure the country club will love that story. Mom reached for my hand one last time, her voice trembling. Please, Angela, I can change. We can be a family again. I looked down at her tear-streaked face, remembering every slap, every insult, every betrayal. You're right, Mom, I said softly. Things are going to change, starting with your living arrangements. Get out of my house. All of you. James put his arm around my shoulders as they left, Madison's sobs echoing down the hallway. You okay? I touched the property papers, my grandfather's final gift of protection. I am now. I finally am. The morning my family moved out was eerily quiet, the sound of expensive luggage scraping across marble floors the only echo in the mansion. Richard faced years in prison, not just for defrauding me, but for a string of other scams Marcus had spent years uncovering. Your father's files just came in from the FBI, James said, dropping a thick folder on my desk. Marcus built this case for years. He just needed the right moment. Sarah, now the hotel manager, brought in coffee, her crisp uniform a badge of her fresh start. Madison's once envied social circle had collapsed entirely. People don't take kindly to discovering their friend lived off her stepsister's generosity while spreading lies about her. A headline on my tablet caught my eye. Former socialite Eleanor William now serving at local diner. The same diner where she had thrown wine at a server last Christmas. Karma has impeccable timing. The mansion's transformation into the William Heritage Hotel was my first real victory. The kitchen where Mom had slapped me now housed a 5-star restaurant. Each renovation felt like reclaiming another piece of myself. Mom tried one last time, showing up in her waitress uniform. Please, Angela, we can start over, she begged, tears streaking her face. No, Mom, you're not sorry, you're desperate. I handed her a debt repayment schedule. You'll pay back every penny Richard stole. That's the only relationship we'll ever have now, strictly business. As security escorted her out, a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying lifted. The hotel exceeded all expectations. Sarah managed it with brilliance and James handled the financial side with his usual expertise. My personal victory, though, came 3 months later. Ready to see your new house? James asked, dangling a set of keys. The modern beachfront property stood gleaming in the sunset, its floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting a golden light. Private beach access, open spaces, most importantly, no memories of abuse within its walls. The previous owner was asking $2 million, James mentioned as we walked through the airy living room. Worth every penny, I said, stepping onto the balcony and breathing in the ocean air. To never see Mom's crocodile tears or Madison's smug sneer again. Sarah joined us later, a bottle of champagne in hand. We toasted in the bright, welcoming kitchen, raising our glasses. To karma, she said. To fresh starts, I added, watching the waves crash against the shore. My phone buzzed on the counter, a missed call from Mom. I didn't bother checking it. Some people don't deserve second chances. The next morning, the paper featured 2 stories. The soaring success of the William Heritage Hotel and Richard's extended sentence for additional fraud. I read both from my beach chair, the sound of waves lapping against the shore, finally at peace in a home that was truly mine. No toxic family, no manipulation. Just me and a life I built from the ashes they tried to bury me in. Hi everyone, I'm Olivia Jackson, a second-grade teacher at Riverside Elementary. 5 years ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I married George Martinez, a corporate lawyer who seemed like the ideal partner. Together we were blessed with beautiful twin daughters, Yasmin and Crystal, now 4 years old. They're my whole world, filling our home with laughter and creativity. But my perfect life slowly unraveled, thanks to my monster-in-law. It started with little jabs, like during one of Charlotte's infamous surprise visits last month. "Your girls are getting so big, Olivia," she began sweetly. Then her tone shifted. "But I couldn't help noticing Yasmin is wearing the same dress as last week. Don't tell me George isn't providing enough for proper clothes." The implication stung, but I kept my composure. "The girls pick their own outfits, Charlotte. It's important for their independence." "Independence? They're 4, she scoffed. "This is exactly what I was telling George about your unusual parenting methods." At lunch the next day, my best friend Noah, a 5th-grade teacher at my school, noticed my stress. "Charlotte again," he guessed. I sighed. "She's everywhere, no." Yesterday, she reorganized my entire kitchen while I was at work. Apparently, I'm not efficient enough. "That's not normal," Noah said firmly. My sister went through something similar. It didn't end well. When I brought it up with George, his response was dismissive. "She's just being helpful. Mom knows best," he said with a shrug. But Charlotte's meddling wasn't just limited to my parenting. Rumors started circulating around town. "Did you hear what she told Barbara at the grocery store?" Noel asked me one day. "That you're working too much and neglecting your family." I froze. She said what? As if that wasn't bad enough, a week later, I caught her in my bedroom, rummaging through my closet. "These clothes aren't appropriate for a mother," she declared, holding up my favorite dress. "George agrees. You should dress more conservatively." "George doesn't get to decide what I wear, and neither do you," I snapped. "Oh, sweetie," she said with mock sympathy. "A wife should always consider her husband's preferences." I raised him to expect certain standards. That night, George came home late, as usual. When I confronted him, he was defensive. "Mom's just trying to help, Olivia. Why can't you appreciate that? She raised me alone, you know." "I'm not asking for her help, George," I said, barely keeping my frustration in check. "I'm asking for respect in my own home." "Maybe if you did things more her way," he started, but I cut him off when I noticed a new house key on his keychain. "Did you make a copy of our house key? She might need to check on things when we're not home." "It's just easier this way," he replied casually. That night, I lay in bed feeling like a stranger in my own house. But the worst was yet to come. Charlotte started showing up every day after school. One afternoon, I came home to find her rearranging the living room. "This furniture layout was blocking the energy flow," she explained. "And honestly, these throw pillows. Tacky." As I opened my mouth to respond, my phone buzzed. A bank notification for a large withdrawal from our joint account. "Oh, George mentioned he needed extra cash for a work event," Charlotte said, not even looking up. "What work event?" I demanded. "He never mentioned it." "Oh, sweetheart," she cooed, "he probably didn't want to worry your pretty little head about it. I've been helping him manage the finances. He's always been terrible with money, just like his father." Later that night, I confronted George again. "Why is your mother involved in our bank accounts?" She's helping out, he said dismissively. She gave me $50,000 last month for an investment opportunity. Investment? Why wasn't I informed? Because you just complicate things, he said. Mom knows what she's doing. The breaking point came during parent-teacher conferences. I was discussing a student's progress when Charlotte stormed into my classroom. There you are, she yelled. How dare you keep my grandchildren from me? They're Martinez blood, not yours. The parent I'd been meeting with looked horrified. Mrs. Jackson, should I come back later? Before I could respond, Charlotte continued. This woman kidnapped my son's children. She's poisoning them against their father. Noel rushed in, drawn by the commotion. Charlotte, you need to leave now, or I'm calling the police. Go ahead, call them, she shouted. Let them know how she's alienating those precious girls from their grandmother. The principal had to escort Charlotte out while she screamed about lawyers and grandparents' rights. I was mortified. I got it all on video, Noel whispered, discreetly showing me his phone. You'll need evidence of this behavior. That evening, while George was working late, again, I found a stack of bank statements in his home office. Multiple accounts I'd never seen before, all managed by Charlotte. Looking for something, George's voice cut through the silence. He stood in the doorway, his expression dark with anger. Care to explain why your mother has access to accounts I didn't even know existed? I demanded, holding up the papers. You're going through my private things now? Mom was right about you. You're becoming unstable. Unstable? I'm not the one hiding money and letting my mother run our marriage. She's worried about the girls' safety, George shot back, his voice rising. She says you've been acting erratic at school. She caused a scene at my workplace. I shouted. She's the one who's erratic. She wouldn't have to check on you if you were a better mother and wife. Maybe if you cooked like her, kept house like her. I'm calling my lawyer, I said, shaking with rage. Mom already spoke to her friend at Thompson and Associates, he said with a smug grin. No lawyer in town will take your case. Face it, Olivia. You're alone in this. Noel's words echoed in my mind. Some people don't show their true nature until they think they have you trapped. This wasn't just meddling anymore. This was a calculated effort to isolate and control me. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. I started recording everything. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play too. The truth hit me like a truck the next day. I stopped by George's office to surprise him with lunch. His secretary, Amy, was sitting on his desk, his hands where they shouldn't be. Oh, Olivia, Amy stammered, straightening her skirt. I was just helping George with some filing. Really? On his desk? I asked, my voice icy. It's not what you think, George stammered. Actually, it's exactly what I think, I snapped. Let me guess. Your mother introduced you. Amy respects family values, right? Tradition. Authority? Mothers? I stormed out, only to find Charlotte waiting for me in the parking lot. Finally figured it out, did you? She sneered. Amy's a much better match. She knows her place. That night, Yasmin wet her bed for the first time in 2 years. Grandma says you're sick in the head, Mommy, she whispered. Are you going away? I held her close, my heart breaking. Never, baby. Who told you that? Grandma. She tells everyone at church we need to pray for you. The next day, I was served with papers. Charlotte was suing for grandparents' rights, claiming I was mentally unstable and unfit to parent. Noah, I need your help, I said, my voice trembling. This is getting dangerous. Already on it, he replied. That weekend, we installed security cameras around the house while George was conveniently away on a work retreat with Amy. It didn't take long for Charlotte to slip up. The following Tuesday, the cameras caught her sneaking in, planting prescription bottles in my nightstand. Found these in Olivia's room, she later told George. She's been hiding her medication. Who knows what else she's hiding? Her plan backfired spectacularly when I started digging into George's past. His high school sweetheart reached out after hearing rumors about me. Charlotte did the same thing to me, she confessed. Planted things in my car. Spread rumors I was unstable. George believed every word. Then she introduced him to my replacement, his college girlfriend. What happened to her? I asked. Same story, different year. Charlotte always finds a better woman, until they start having opinions of their own. Meanwhile, the twins' nightmares worsened. Crystal clung to me at school drop-off. Grandma says you're taking us away from Daddy, she sobbed. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted a lawyer in the next town, far enough from Charlotte's reach. We need everything documented, my lawyer advised. Every visit, every lie, every penny she's stolen. This isn't just meddling, it's systematic financial and emotional abuse. When George found me packing one night, he blocked the door. Where do you think you're going? Away from you and your mother's sick games, I said, my voice steady but sharp. Mom says you're having another episode. Maybe we should consider inpatient treatment. Maybe you should consider growing a spine, I snapped. The girls need their grandmother. The girls need therapy because of their grandmother, I shot back. They're terrified of her. They're fine, George insisted. Mom says. Mom says. Do you even hear yourself? I grabbed my pre-packed bags, every detail of my escape meticulously planned. The security footage was backed up, the bank statements copied, the evidence secured. They thought they had me cornered, but they had no idea what was coming. The day I left was just the beginning. I moved in with Noah temporarily while my lawyer built our case. But Charlotte couldn't stand losing control. Late one night, Noah's security cameras caught her breaking into his house. I'll show them what an unsafe environment looks like, she muttered, pulling a bag of drugs from her purse. Too bad the police were watching the live feed. Mrs. Martinez, you're under arrest for breaking and entering and attempted evidence planting. And with that, the dominoes started to fall. George's firm launched an audit after Charlotte accidentally copied them on an email about redistributing client funds. Mrs. Martinez has been forging signatures and embezzling client money for years, the managing partner revealed. George, we trusted you with our biggest accounts. Mom was just trying to help with investments, George stammered. Help? She stole millions. You're fired, and we're pressing charges. As George's professional life crumbled, his sister Sarah came forward. She destroyed my marriage too, Sarah confessed. Told everyone I was cheating when she was the one setting my husband up with his coworker. The firm's investigation unearthed even more. Charlotte had been sabotaging George's cases, calling clients to change meeting times, and driving away his biggest accounts. In court, my lawyer laid everything bare: the planted evidence, the financial records, Charlotte's criminal charges, and George's affair. Your Honor, my lawyer declared, these children deserve protection from this systematic abuse. The judge agreed. Full custody was granted to me. Charlotte faced fraud charges for her pyramid scheme targeting church members. George, now jobless and disgraced, moved back in with Mommy Dearest, his law career in ruins. A week later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Olivia, we'd love to have you as our new head teacher. Months later, George showed up at my school. Olivia, I'm sorry, he began, his voice heavy with regret. I see it all now. Mom's sick. She needs help. I needed help. Our daughters needed help when they were crying every night. Save it, I replied, my tone firm. Please, can we try again? For the girls? The girls are thriving without your toxic influence. They're in therapy, their nightmares are gone, and they're finally happy. Don't destroy that. But they're my daughters too. You should have thought about that before choosing your mother over their well-being. Goodbye, George. Last week, Charlotte's face appeared in the local paper. Local woman faces prison time for multi-million-dollar fraud. George was quoted defending her, still unable to break free from her control. Meanwhile, I was having dinner with Noah and the girls, celebrating their straight A's. Mommy, can we get a puppy? Yasmin asked, her eyes bright and fearless. Please? Crystal chimed in, no longer the timid little girl she once was. Why not? I smiled. Our new house has a big yard. Noah squeezed my hand under the table. You did it, Olivia. You broke the cycle. Looking at my happy, healthy daughters, I knew every struggle had been worth it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free and letting fate handle the rest. The local news still mentions Charlotte's downfall now and then, but I'm too busy living my best life to care. My girls are safe, I'm thriving in my career, and most importantly, we're finally at peace. Hi, I'm Karen, 34 years old, and let me tell you about the battle I fought with the most toxic mother-in-law you could ever imagine. Trust me, he'll want to stick around to hear how this ends. The twins were finally asleep. I collapsed onto the couch, exhausted from another chaotic day. Just as I started to relax, my phone buzzed. Michael, my husband, texted yet again. I'm so sorry, honey. Another late meeting. This project is critical. I'll make it up to you this weekend. I sighed, typing back, it's okay. I miss you though. It was the truth. Between his endless business trips and late nights, I was practically raising our 5-year-old twins on my own. And then the doorbell rang. My heart sank. Not again. Peeking through the window, I saw her, Monica, my mother-in-law, standing there with her signature scowl. I opened the door reluctantly. Karen, why aren't you answering your phone? And why is there a toy in the driveway? That's dangerous. It's 8 p.m., Monica. The kids are asleep. Well, if you were a more organized mother, they'd be in bed by 7:30, when Michael was little. Monica, I interrupted, my patience thin. We've talked about this. Please don't show up unannounced. Before she could launch into another lecture, my phone rang. It was Sarah, my old work friend and a much-needed lifeline. Karen, you're not going to believe this, Sarah said, her voice buzzing with excitement. Thompson and Brooks is hiring. Senior Marketing Director. This could be your comeback. Later that week, I met Sarah for coffee. I miss work so much, I admitted, stirring my latte. The twins are in kindergarten now. It feels like the perfect time. Of course it is. Remember that campaign you led? Increase sales by 40%. You're wasting your talent at home. Just as I started to feel hopeful, the door jingled, and in walked Barbara, Monica's best friend. Great. Karen, fancy seeing you here. Barbara sneered. Monica mentioned you were neglecting those poor babies to job hunt. I rolled my eyes, my phone buzzing again. This time it was my sister Rachel. Don't let her get to you. Remember last month? Ah yes, last month. The school incident. Monica had tried to pick up the twins without my permission, throwing a fit about her so-called grandmother's rights. That memory still made my blood boil. You're making a mistake, Monica declared during her next uninvited visit. Michael works so hard to provide for you. Your children need their mother at home. I squared my shoulders. My children need a happy, fulfilled mother. And Michael supports my decision. Her eyes narrowed. We'll see about that. I ignored her, updating my resume, scheduling interviews, and finally getting the call. Mrs. Thompson would like to meet you next Tuesday, the recruiter said. Senior Marketing Director. I hung up, my hands trembling with excitement. Rachel agreed to watch the twins, and Sarah helped me pick out the perfect outfit. You've got this, Sarah said firmly. Don't let Monica hold you back. Little did I know, Monica and Barbara were already scheming to sabotage everything I'd worked for. That evening, Monica called. Her voice screeched through the phone as I ironed my suit. Going back to work is the most selfish thing you could do, Karen. Michael's job requires him to travel, and those babies need their mother. The twins are thriving in kindergarten, I replied calmly, and Michael supports my decision. Oh, does he? She hissed. We'll see what he says when he finds out you're abandoning his children. I hung up, shaking. Michael was out of town for a week-long conference, and his absence always emboldened her. Rachel, are you sure you can watch the twins Tuesday? I asked, pacing. Stop worrying, Rachel reassured me. They'll have a blast. Monica won't even know where to find them. The next morning my phone buzzed. A frantic text from Sarah. Karen, heads up. Barbara was bragging at the office about teaching you a lesson. She knows about your interview. My stomach dropped. Of course, Barbara. She worked in HR at Thompson and Brooks. That afternoon, Monica showed up again, smug as ever. I know all about your little interview. Barbara told me everything. Monica sneered, crossing her arms. I shot back. This is none of your business. Everything about my son's children is my business, she snapped. I've already spoken to a lawyer about my rights. My stomach tightened. What lawyer? What rights? You'll see, grandparents have rights too, and when you abandon these children for your selfish career, get out of my house, Monica. Now. She smirked as if she'd already won. You really should answer your phone more often. Michael's been trying to reach you. I checked my phone. Nothing. Another manipulation tactic. Later, Sarah called, her voice tense. Karen, I overheard Barbara on the phone. She was talking about some lawyer named Jenkins. He's known for aggressive custody battles. I Googled him. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. This wasn't a bluff. Monica was escalating. Tuesday morning arrived. I dropped the twins off at Rachel's, triple-checked my portfolio, and arrived at Thompson and Brooks a full 30 minutes early. The receptionist smiled. "Mrs. Thompson will see you now." The interview was going better than I could have hoped. Mrs. Thompson nodded, impressed. "Your previous campaigns are remarkable. Why the 5-year gap?" "I chose to stay home with my twins until they started school," I explained confidently. Then the door burst open. 2 police officers entered, followed by Monica, hysterical and pointing at me. "That's her. She's taken my grandbabies. She's trying to flee the state." Mrs. Thompson's jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" "My children are with my sister," I stammered, pulling out my phone. "I can prove it." One officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, we received a report of potential child endangerment and kidnapping. She's keeping them from their father." Monica wailed. "Michael doesn't even know where they are." My hands trembled as I called Rachel. This couldn't be happening. 5 years of Monica's interference had led to this moment, but I never imagined she'd go this far. Minutes later, Rachel arrived with the twins in tow. They ran to me, hugging my legs tightly. "I'm your aunt and authorized caregiver," Rachel said, handing over documents. "I have texts from both Karen and Michael confirming the arrangement." The officers reviewed the paperwork while Monica's dramatic act started to crumble. "Ma'am," one officer said firmly, "filing a false police report is a serious offense." Mrs. Thompson cleared her throat, her expression unreadable. "I think we're done here, Karen. Given today's disruption, we'll be pursuing other candidates." Back home, Michael finally called. "Karen, what's going on?" "Mom's hysterical, saying you're trying to kidnap the kids. Your mother just destroyed my job opportunity. She called the police during my interview. She was just worried about the kids." "Stop defending her, Michael. This has to end." That evening, Sarah called with shocking news. "Remember Michael's ex, Jessica? I found her on Facebook. You need to hear her story." The next day, I met Jessica over coffee. Her face was pale but determined. "Monica did the same thing to me," she revealed. "She convinced Michael I was cheating, spread rumors at my workplace. I had to leave town to escape her harassment." My jaw tightened. "How many others?" "At least 3 that I know of. There's a whole support group." I spent the next week gathering evidence. Monica had tried accessing the twins' school records using Barbara's HR connections. She told our neighbors I was mentally unstable and started rumors at Michael's company about our marriage. "Michael, you need to see this." I laid out everything: Jessica's story, school incident reports, screenshots of Monica's texts. Michael's face went pale. "Mom did all this?" "To Jessica, too." "She's not protecting the twins, Michael. She's trying to control everything." That night, Sarah called again. "Karen, Barbara just got caught falsifying HR records. She was trying to block your application, but they found more. Years of manipulation, blocked promotions, leaked personal information." Michael finally confronted Monica. "How could you do this? To Karen, to Jessica, to all of them." "I was protecting you," she screamed. "These women aren't good enough for you." "No, Mom, you're the one who isn't good enough. Stay away from my family. After everything I'd done for you, that woman has turned you against me." Karen showed me the truth. "We're done, Mom. Don't contact us again." Later that night, Michael held me close. "I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. All those years." I started a detailed log of every interaction with Monica. Rachel helped me install security cameras, and Sarah connected me with a support group for victims of toxic in-laws. "We're building a case," my lawyer explained. "If she continues harassing you, we'll be ready." As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. Monica's web of lies was unraveling, and this time, I wasn't afraid. I had the truth, the proof, and most importantly, Michael finally saw his mother's true nature. Whatever Monica planned next, we were ready. After the Thompson and Brooks disaster, I decided to bet on myself. 6 months later, my marketing consultancy was thriving. Mrs. Parker from Latitude Brands called. "They want to double their contract," my assistant announced, beaming. I smiled, still amazed at how far I'd come. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah. "Karen, turn on the local news. Barbara's scandal just exploded." The reporter's voice filled my office. Barbara Mitchell and Monica Wilson are under investigation for extensive financial fraud. Sources reveal the two used their positions to embezzle funds from multiple companies over the last decade. Before I could process, Michael's brother, Tom, called next. "Karen, I just saw the news. I had no idea Mom was involved in Barbara's schemes. All these years she told me you were the problem. She manipulated everyone, Tom," I said gently. "I know that now," he admitted, his voice heavy. "I found the letters she hid. Birthday cards, Christmas presents for the kids. She intercepted everything, claiming you and Michael didn't want us in contact." Later that week, our lawyer updated us on Monica's situation. She's been caught helping Barbara funnel money through fake consulting contracts. The fraud investigation also uncovered the false police reports, harassment, and her attempts to access private records, he explained. Michael squeezed my hand. "Good, she needs to face consequences." Watching Monica's carefully constructed world crumble was surreal. Her country club membership was revoked, her church committee positions eliminated, and her friends avoided her calls. "She's selling her house," Tom reported. "Moving to Arizona. Nobody here will associate with her anymore." Meanwhile, my business continued to flourish. I landed major contracts, hired more staff, and even opened a second office. "Mommy, look." The twins ran in, holding their school awards. "We got highest marks in art and math." "That's amazing. Should we show Daddy when he gets home?" "Yes, and can we have pizza to celebrate?" The doorbell rang. It was Linda, Monica's former neighbor. "Monica asked me to give you this letter," Linda said hesitantly. "She's filing for bankruptcy. Says she's changed and wants to make amends." I took the sealed envelope. "Thank you, Linda. But no, thank you." I placed the letter in the trash. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. That night, the twins, pajama-clad, begged for one more story before bed. As I tucked them in, I glanced at Monica's unopened letter. Some people never change, but I had. I was no longer the scared daughter-in-law desperate for approval. I built something beautiful, a thriving business, a stronger marriage, happy children, and a life free from toxic influence. What would you do if you discovered your mother-in-law's protective behavior was actually a pattern of destroying every relationship in her son's life? Would you expose her immediately or gather evidence first, like I did? Let me know in the comments. I'm especially curious to hear from those who've dealt with toxic in-laws who tried to control their children's lives. Have you ever experienced someone weaponizing grandparents' rights? This story came to an end, but there are countless others of people standing up to toxic family members. If you want to hear more about how others overcame similar situations, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support helps us share stories that many are too afraid to tell. Stay strong, because sometimes the family you need to cut off is the one you married into. Drop it if you agree. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. Have you ever felt trapped in a golden cage? A place where every bar is crafted from judgment and every breath is measured against someone else's success. That was my life with the Wilsons. But today, I'm sharing how I turned their psychological warfare into my greatest victory. If you're ready to hear this story of transformation, make sure to like and subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this ends. I was 26 when I married Tom Wilson. Armed with a business degree and dreams of building a loving family, I thought I had it all figured out. But my dream quickly unraveled, courtesy of my mother-in-law, Patricia, and her golden child, Emma. "Sarah, darling, Emma just closed another 6-figure deal today. Isn't it wonderful to have someone in the family who actually contributes to society?" Patricia's voice was sweet, her words sharp as daggers. It was our weekly family dinner, and as usual, I pushed my food around my plate, forcing a polite smile. Tom chuckled. "Mom's just proud of Emma, babe. Don't take it personally." But in the Wilson household, everything was personal. Achievements weren't celebrated, they were weapons. Choices weren't decisions, they were battlegrounds. Emma, the marketing executive extraordinaire, was Patricia's crown jewel, and I, the housewife with a business degree, was the family's disappointment. "You know, Sarah," Emma said during one of our forced shopping trips, "there are always entry-level positions at my company. Even answering phones would be something." Then came the news that changed everything. I was pregnant. Instead of joy, I felt dread creeping in, magnified by severe back pain that arrived early in my pregnancy. The doctor prescribed rest and minimal physical strain, but Patricia dismissed it over brunch. Pregnant women have been working since the dawn of time, she said, slicing into her grapefruit. Emma worked through 2 major campaigns with the flu last month. Now that's dedication. The breaking point came when Emma bought her new house in Oakwood Heights. Patricia couldn't stop bragging. My Emma, climbing the property ladder while others just exist. One afternoon, as I battled another wave of back pain, Patricia cornered me in the kitchen. Emma's too busy to clean her new house before moving in. Since you're home all day doing nothing, you'll take care of it. Patricia, my back. Oh please, she cut me off. It's just cleaning. What else do you contribute to this family? Emma works 60-hour weeks, and you can't even manage this. Tom walked in mid-conversation. Mom's right, honey. Emma's been so stressed with work. It's the least we can do. I stood there, one hand on my aching back and the other protectively over my barely showing pregnancy bump. In their eyes, I would never be enough. But in that moment, I made a silent promise to myself and my unborn child. This wouldn't be our life forever. The morning of Emma's house cleaning felt like a scene from a psychological thriller. I stood in front of her massive Victorian home, cleaning supplies in hand, my back screaming in protest. The gray clouds overhead mirrored the storm brewing inside me. Oh good, you're finally here, Emma said, stepping onto the porch with a steaming cup of coffee. The cleaning service I usually use charges $500 a day, so you're really saving me money. She ushered me in, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors. I started in the kitchen while Emma set up her laptop in the dining room. As I scrubbed, I heard the deliberate clink of her breakfast muffin crumbs hitting the floor. Sorry, she said absently, eyes glued to her screen. I'm on important calls all day. Try to keep the noise down. 4 hours in, my back felt like it was being stabbed with hot knives. Emma, I need to take a break. She barely looked up. Seriously. I'm in the middle of a huge campaign, and you're not even halfway done. Mom was right about your work ethic. Through the haze of pain, I heard her voice drifting from her office. Yes, Patricia, she said, laughing. She's already playing the pregnancy card. Can you believe it? Remember how I worked through that acquisition deal with pneumonia? Patricia's shrill laugh pierced through the speaker. That's my girl. Unlike some people who think marriage is a free ride. Did you know she went to that community college downtown? Honestly, Tom could have done so much better. Tears stung my eyes as I scrubbed harder at the baseboards, her words cutting deeper than the ache in my back. My phone buzzed on the counter. Tom's response to my earlier text about the pain lit up the screen. Stop being dramatic. Mom says you're embarrassing me. Just then, a knock at the door interrupted my spiral. Emma groaned, tossing her pen onto the table. Get that, will you? And try not to look so pathetic when you answer it. At the door stood a striking woman in her 40s, holding a package. I'm Rebecca, from next door. They delivered this to my house by mistake. Her sharp eyes took in my pale face and hunched posture. Are you okay? You look unwell. She's fine. Emma called from behind me, her voice dripping with condescension. Just lazy, as usual. Rebecca's expression hardened, her tone suddenly businesslike. Lazy, huh? She pulled out a sleek business card and handed it to me, CEO of a digital marketing firm. I couldn't help but overhear earlier, she said, her voice dropping to a softer pitch. I know talent when I see it, and I know abuse when I see it too. Come by my house when you're done. We need to talk. That evening, with an ice pack pressed to my back, I walked into Rebecca's home. Her office walls were lined with awards and magazine covers, each one reflecting her immense success. What they're doing to you is classic psychological abuse, Rebecca said, pouring herbal tea into a delicate porcelain cup. But I saw your college thesis online. Your digital marketing strategies were brilliant. How would you like to turn their biggest weapon against them? For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. As Rebecca outlined her plan, I realized this wasn't just about cleaning houses, it was about cleaning house in my life. The mess I needed to remove wasn't on any floor. It was the toxic family who thought they could break me. Looking around at Rebecca's success, I saw my future. Sometimes rock bottom isn't the end, it's the foundation on which you build an empire. After giving birth to my daughter, Sophie, I turned maternity leave into my secret weapon. While Tom and his family assumed I was wasting time lounging with the baby, I was building my empire one keystroke at a time. You seem different, Patricia said during dinner one evening, her eyes narrowing. Awfully confident for someone who just changes diapers all day. If she only knew. Between diaper changes, I was taking Rebecca's advanced marketing courses and landing my first client through her network, ironically, one of Emma's dissatisfied customers. Our campaign numbers are dropping again. Emma ranted during Sunday brunch. Some new agency is snatching up all our clients and no one will tell us who it is. I hid my smile behind my coffee cup. My agency, Phoenix Digital, was the mysterious rising star turning the industry on its head. Operating anonymously through Rebecca's office space, I was revolutionizing social media strategies while Emma's outdated methods crumbled. Something's different about you, Tom confronted me one evening. You're always on your phone, smiling at messages. Are you cheating? Just mommy blogs, I lied smoothly, while finalizing a six-figure deal with a major cosmetics brand, Emma's biggest client. The tension reached a boiling point during a family gathering when Emma burst into tears. This mystery agency, I found out who owns it. Her eyes met mine across the table, realization dawning. Shock flickered there, but shame kept her silent. Patricia, oblivious, patted Emma's hand. Don't worry, darling. Not everyone has your talent. Look at Sarah, perfectly content being a nobody. That night, Emma texted me. How long have you been doing this? I replied with a screenshot of Phoenix Digital's latest award-winning campaign. The same one Emma's team had been chasing, long enough to know my worth. The power dynamic shifted after that. Patricia's jabs about my unemployment fell flat as I quietly hired my 10th employee. Emma's boasts about her career dulled, knowing I now owned 40% of her former client list. You've changed, Tom accused one night. The old Sarah was sweeter, more manageable. I thought of the contract waiting in my inbox from a Fortune 500 company. The old Sarah was a butterfly waiting to emerge. Would you like to see what she's become? Rebecca, watching my transformation, smiled with pride. Ready to show them who you really are. Looking at my sleeping daughter, I smiled back. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with a marketing strategy. So brilliant your enemies become case studies in what not to do. Tomorrow, Phoenix Digital would announce its CEO to the world. The Wilsons were about to learn the hard way that the woman they underestimated had become the woman they couldn't ignore. The Ford's Technology Conference became the stage for my greatest triumph and the beginning of my true happiness. As I stepped onto the stage to accept the Digital Innovator of the Year award, I locked eyes with Michael Chen, the keynote speaker. His gentle smile would soon change my life. Your Phoenix Digital campaign revolutionized the entire industry, he said later during the networking hour. I'd love to collaborate. That same week, Patricia barged into my office, uninvited. I always knew you had it in you, darling, she gushed, her voice dripping with fox pride. I pushed you to be better. This is practically my success, too. Before I could respond, Tom stormed in. As your husband, he declared, I have a right to half of this company. You built it while we were married. Rebecca emerged from her office, calm and poised. Actually, she said, holding a thick folder, she built this while documenting your family's systematic emotional abuse. How do you think a board of directors would feel about that evidence? Tom's face drained of color. The divorce papers were filed that very afternoon. Michael proved to be my unexpected strength through it all. You're not just surviving anymore, he said one evening, his hand warm over mine. You're thriving, and you deserve every bit of it. His family welcomed me like a long-lost daughter. Grace, his mother, showed me what maternal love truly felt like. In our family, she said one afternoon while showing me her treasured dumpling recipe, success is measured by happiness, not bank accounts. Emma's professional downfall came swiftly. The company's letting me go, she texted me one day. I guess you won. I never played to win, I replied. I played to become who I always was. My wedding to Michael was everything my first wasn't, filled with genuine joy, supportive family, and real love. Grace helped me choose my dress, tears shining in her eyes as she adjusted my veil. You're the daughter I always wanted, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. A year later, at a Chen family dinner, I announced my pregnancy. The room erupted in cheers and genuine celebration. Grace immediately began planning the baby shower, while Michael's sisters playfully bickered over who would host. Sitting in my corner office today, I glance at the family photo from last Christmas, framed on my desk. My phone buzzes with a text from Patricia. Darling, can't we put the past behind us? Family is family. I delete it without a second thought and pack up early. Tonight, Grace is teaching me her secret dumpling recipe. As I drive home, I reflect on how life comes full circle. I once cleaned houses for people who thought I was nothing. Now I run a company that's reshaping the digital landscape, married to a man who sees my light, and surrounded by a family who knows that love isn't about control. It's about letting people shine. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about revenge at all. It's about finding where you truly belong. What about you? Have you ever realized that the people belittling you were actually terrified of your potential? Would you expose them immediately, or would you silently build your empire while they underestimated you? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to hear your stories about dealing with toxic family members. Did you confront them head-on, or did you play the long game? The most interesting part of my journey wasn't just proving them wrong. It was discovering that success is the best answer to toxicity. While they were busy mocking my lazy lifestyle, I was quietly building the foundation for their biggest business nightmare. Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Mitchell. Never in my wildest dreams did I think my business degree from NYU would lead me to hiding my success from my own family. 3 years ago, I met John Mitchell at a cozy coffee shop. He was charming, kind, and everything I thought I wanted. Our love story felt like a dream until I met his mother, Victoria. You could save so much money living here, Victoria had said after our wedding, gesturing grandly around her sprawling mansion. Why waste money on rent? Families should stick together. John squeezed my hand, his eyes pleading. Mom's right, honey. We could save for our own place so much faster. The warning signs should have been obvious, but I ignored them. Within weeks, Victoria had taken over our finances. Let me handle the bills, dear, she cooed with that syrupy smile of hers. You're both so busy. Just hand over your paychecks, and I'll make sure everything's taken care of. John nodded eagerly. See, Mom's amazing with money. We're still lucky. But our savings never seemed to grow. Every time I asked about our account balance, Victoria would wave me off. Oh, you know how expenses are, she'd say breezily, then shift the conversation. By the way, where were you yesterday afternoon? It didn't take long to realize she was tracking me. She'd call out of the blue, show up unannounced at places I'd mentioned, and even check my car's mileage. Around that time, my best friend Diana offered me a position at her marketing firm. Girl, you're wasting your talent, she said over coffee. I need someone with your skills. I took the job, but I didn't tell Victoria. Instead, I told her I'd joined a book club. For 3 months, I kept the job a secret, quietly building my own savings. John, too preoccupied with earning his mother's approval, didn't notice a thing. You've always been such a disappointment, I overheard Victoria scold him once. Thank God you at least married someone with a decent head on her shoulders. Occasionally, John's father, Peter, would visit. He'd hand over checks to fund Victoria's extravagant tastes. Nothing but the best for my Vicky, he'd say with a grin, blissfully unaware of her manipulations. Then came the LinkedIn post. Diana's company landed a major client, and she tagged me in a celebratory photo. Congratulations to our brilliant marketing strategist, Erica Mitchell. I was in the kitchen when Victoria stormed in, her face a mask of fury, her tablet clutched in one hand and a leather belt in the other. You sneaking, lying little snake, she screeched. The first strike landed across my back. How dare you go behind my back? Another strike. After everything I've done for you. I collapsed to the floor, shielding my face as the belt came down again and again. John stood frozen in the doorway, pale and trembling. Mom, please. Shut up, John, she snapped. This ungrateful little wretch needs to learn respect. When it was over, I lay on the cold tile, my body trembling, tears streaming down my face. But in that moment, something shifted. Not fear, not shame. Determination. That night, as I pressed ice packs against my bruises, I made a vow. Victoria Mitchell was about to learn that not everyone could be controlled. Her reign of terror was coming to an end. I started keeping a detailed journal, recording every insult, every manipulation, every questionable financial move. To Victoria, I played the role of the perfect, submissive daughter-in-law. But behind the scenes, I was gathering evidence. There's something fishy about her tax records, Diana said one day, scrolling through her laptop. Look at these property transfers. How did you get those? I asked. Diana smirked. Let's just say I know people who know people. And get this, your mother-in-law has been married 3 times. Not once like she claims. That's how we found Rachel Thompson. Meeting her at a quiet cafe felt like peering into a mirror, a glimpse of what my future might hold if I didn't act. She did the same thing to me, Rachel whispered, her hands trembling around her coffee cup. First, she made us move in. Then she took control of everything, every penny. When I tried to speak, Rachel slowly pulled back her sleeve, revealing a lattice of faded scars. Robert, her second son, just stood there, she said, her voice cracking. Watched, just like your James does. Did you ever report her? I asked softly. Rachel gave a bitter laugh. She convinced everyone I was mentally unstable. Even Robert believed her. The divorce ruined me. Her words lingered as I noticed Victoria's behavior shifting. She started having frequent secretive meetings with a man named Marcus Reynolds. One afternoon, I overheard them in Victoria's study. The invoices need to look legitimate, she said in a low voice. Peter can't suspect a thing. Relax, Vicky, Marcus replied. We've been siphoning money from his company for months. He's too love-struck to notice. Heart pounding, I carefully cracked the door open, recording their conversation on my phone. What about your current son? Marcus asked. Any chance he'll inherit soon? Victoria's laugh was cold, cruel. James, that pathetic fool would sign over everything to me anyway. But Peter's been talking to his lawyer about changing the will. We need to move faster. Meanwhile, James was unraveling. One night, I found him sitting on the edge of our bed, staring blankly at the wall. I can never make her happy, Erica, he whispered. Nothing I do is ever enough. Maybe that's because. Don't, he cut me off, his voice sharp. You don't understand. Mom sacrificed everything for me. Did she? I asked gently. Or is that just what she wants you to believe? He didn't respond, just turned away and popped another antidepressant. Victoria had convinced him he needed them years ago. But I was starting to wonder if they were doing more harm than good. Later that week, I caught Victoria tampering with his medication. Just helping him sleep better, she said sweetly, her eyes glittering with malice. A mother knows best. I pocketed one of the pills when she wasn't looking. Whatever game she was playing, it was darker than I'd imagined. And James was too ensnared in her web to see it. That night, I called Diana. I need a good private investigator, someone who can't be bought. Already on it, she said, but Erica, be careful. People like Victoria are dangerous when cornered. I know, I said, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. But I'm more dangerous when I've been pushed too far. Gone was the frightened daughter-in-law. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who wouldn't let Victoria destroy another life. The next day, I met Peter at a quiet diner outside of town. His face turned ashen as I laid out the evidence. These invoices are fake, I said, sliding the documents across the table. Victoria and Marcus have been stealing from your company for years. No, he whispered, his hands trembling as he examined the papers. She wouldn't? She did, I said firmly, and the private investigator found offshore accounts. They're planning to transfer everything within the week. Peter's voice broke. I trusted her. God, I trusted her with everything. Leanna's investigator, Mike, had uncovered more than I expected. They've done this before, he explained, spreading photos across Deanna's kitchen table. 3 other companies, same pattern. Marcus Reynolds is just her latest partner. I anonymously sent the evidence to the Wall Street Journal. Within days, the story broke. Prominent businessman's wife implicated in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Victoria's carefully crafted facade began to crumble. One night, I found her shredding documents in her study at 3 a.m. What are you doing up? She snapped, her eyes wild. I could ask you the same thing, I said calmly, worried about something. Her phone rang incessantly with calls from journalists. Marcus had stopped answering her altogether. The walls were closing in. Then came the breaking point. She stormed into our bedroom, her face twisted in rage, waving her phone. You little snake, you did this, she shrieked, lunging at me. Mom, stop. James stepped between us, his voice trembling. Get out of my way, she screamed, slapping him hard across the face. James staggered back, his hand flying to his cheek. For the first time, he saw her for who she truly was. You get me, he whispered, disbelief in his eyes. Oh, grow up, she sneered. You've always been weak, just like your father. Don't talk to him like that, I said, grabbing my pre-packed bag. Where do you think you're going? She demanded. Away from you. For good. James caught my arm. Erica, please. We can fix this. Fix what? I shot back. The abuse? The manipulation? The fact that she's been drugging you. His face went pale. What? Those aren't antidepressants, James. Get them tested. I left him standing there, his world crashing down. Outside, Diana waited in her car. Victoria chased me down the driveway, screaming, You can't leave. I own you. I turned to her, calm and resolute. You never owned me. You just made the mistake of thinking you did. Over the next few days, James called repeatedly. She's changing, Erica, he pleaded. She's getting help. Please come home. That's not my home anymore, I said quietly. And she's not changing. She's just desperate. I watched from a safe distance as Victoria's empire crumbled. Her business partners abandoned her. The country club revoked her membership, and the carefully constructed facade she clung to for decades shattered. One day, she showed up at Diana's house, a tearful mess. I was just trying to protect my family, she sobbed. By stealing? By abuse? By drugging your own son? I shot back. You don't understand what it's like to have nothing, to fight for everything, she pleaded, her voice breaking. No, Victoria, I said coldly. You don't understand what it's like to have everything and still be empty inside. I closed the door on her. Her tears, like everything else about her, were fake. The headline that followed was almost too good. Business partner turns state's evidence in Mitchell fraud case. Marcus Reynolds had folded like a house of cards. I can prove she orchestrated everything, he told investigators, his hands trembling as he handed over a thick folder. Recordings, documents, emails, bank transfers, everything dating back 5 years. Diana squeezed my hand as we watched Victoria's perp walk on TV. Her designer outfit and perfectly coiffed hair couldn't disguise the desperation in her eyes. The once mighty Victoria Mitchell was finally tasting the bitterness of her own medicine. Not so mighty anymore, Diana smirked, pouring us both a celebratory glass of wine. Then James called. His voice was clear for the first time in years, free of the fog Victoria's drugs had trapped him in. The pills, Erica, you were right. The doctor said she'd been giving me sedatives, not antidepressants, he admitted, his voice cracking. I can't believe she'd do that. To her own son. Believe it, I said quietly. It's who she's always been. You just couldn't see it. I filed for divorce from her control. I'm selling the mansion. Erica, can we maybe? No, James. That ship sailed a long time ago, I said firmly. You stood by while she abused me. Some things can't be fixed with an apology. I'll always regret that. Good, you should. 2 years passed like a cleansing rain. Diana made me a partner at her firm, and we expanded to 3 cities. Life was brighter, freer. During our annual leadership conference, I was presenting when I noticed a familiar figure lurking in the back row. Victoria. Her once flawless designer wardrobe had been replaced by ill-fitted discount clothes. Her makeup couldn't mask the toll of her fall from grace. The predator had become prey to her own schemes. After my speech, she approached the stage, wringing her hands. Erica, you've done so well, she began, her voice meek. I always knew you had potential. Maybe we could start fresh. I held up my hand, stopping her mid-sentence. Stop right there. You're not here to congratulate me. You're here because you've lost everything, your money, your status, your control over James. And now you think you can manipulate me one last time. I've changed, she insisted. I've been seeing therapists. The only help you got, I cut in, was a reduced sentence for cooperating. You're not sorry for what you did, Victoria. You're just sorry you got caught. James, meanwhile, was rebuilding his life in a small apartment, working an entry-level job. Victoria had controlled his education, his career, everything. Now he was starting from scratch, like all her other victims. As for me, I didn't look back. Some people mistake forgiveness for weakness. They think saying sorry can erase years of pain and manipulation. But I learned something invaluable through all of this. True strength isn't in forgiving toxic people. It's in walking away and never looking back. Diana grinned as I approached her for the board meeting. Ready? She asked. More than ready, I said, smiling. We stepped into the room, the door clicking shut behind us. Victoria stayed exactly where she belonged, in the past, along with all the other nightmares I'd overcome. Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Mitchell, and today I want to share how I dealt with toxic people in my life. Buckle up, this one's a wild ride. You really hit the jackpot with Jack, Lisa. Those were my sister Amanda's words at my wedding, just 7 months ago. Looking back now, I can't help but laugh at how drastically life can change. You're literally living the dream girl, successful realtor, gorgeous husband, and now this beautiful house. Rachel, my best friend from college, gushed as she helped me unpack in our new home. I'd met Jack at a tech conference where I was networking for real estate clients. He was giving a presentation about software development, and I was instantly drawn to his confidence and warm smile. 2 perfect years of dating followed, romantic dinners, weekend getaways, and endless talks about the future. Oh, darling, I've always wanted a daughter. Jack's past girlfriends were never good enough, but you're just perfect. That was Patricia, my mother-in-law, the first time we met. I should have picked up on the possessive undertone in her voice, but I was too smitten with Jack to notice. Sweetheart, what did the doctor say? Jack's voice echoed in my mind from the day my life changed forever. 6 months into our marriage, I found a lump in the shower. It turned out to be stage 2 breast cancer. We're going to fight this together, Lisa. I don't care how hard it gets. We'll get you the best treatment, Jack assured me, holding me close. I believed him. Girl, you don't have to go through this alone. We're your ride or dies, Rachel said as Amanda nodded in agreement when I shared the diagnosis. But I decided to keep my illness private. I don't want clients backing out of deals because they think I'm unreliable. I explained, trying on my first wig and forcing a smile. These wigs are amazing, you can't even tell, Amanda said during one of our lunch dates. But not everyone was so supportive. Patricia's questions became unsettling. How long have you known Lisa? Did she ever have health issues before? She asked Rachel, fishing for information. Be careful around her, Lisa. Something about the way she watches you gives me the creeps, Rachel warned. Then came the uninvited visits. Lisa, honey, I brought you some homemade chicken soup, Patricia chirped one afternoon. I hadn't given her a key, but she somehow had one made. This kitchen is a mess. How do you expect to take care of Jack if you can't keep the house clean? And what's with all this takeout? A wife should cook fresh meals. I was too drained from chemo to argue. The criticism became routine. Then, one day, I caught her rifling through my medical files in the home office. What are you doing? I demanded. Oh, I was just tidying up, she replied, feigning innocence. Jack seems so worried lately. Is there something you're not telling us? The final straw came at a family barbecue. I had just completed my 3rd round of chemo and put on my best wig, determined to appear strong. Everyone, I'd like to propose a toast, Patricia announced, standing behind my chair, to family and honesty. I felt a tug, and time seemed to freeze. My wig slipped off in front of everyone. Gasps filled the air. Phones were raised, recording the moment. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Patricia's theatrical performance was Oscar-worthy. I was just fixing your hair. I had no idea. She wailed dramatically, clutching her chest like a soap opera star. Why would you hide this from everyone? From my son? I couldn't respond. Tears spilled down my face as I ran inside, humiliated. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Patricia, phone discreetly raised, recording my breakdown. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Amanda, forwarding screenshots from Patricia's family group chat. Patricia, look how she's deceiving my poor Jack. What else could she be hiding? Cousin, who knows if she's even sick? Maybe it's all for attention. Patricia, did you see her run away? So dramatic. Jack deserves better than a lying wife. Cousin, remember Jessica from college? She's still single. Patricia, thanks for filming it, Pat. Can't believe she fooled us all this time. Jack's response, Mom's just concerned. Maybe if Lisa had been upfront from the beginning. My hands trembled as I read the messages. My husband, the man I thought was my partner, wasn't defending me. He was siding with her. Rachel's voice was firm when I called her, sobbing. Girl, I'm coming over right now. This isn't just mean anymore. This is straight up evil. We need to document everything. That night, while Jack worked late again, I began recording every interaction with Patricia, saving every message. If she wanted to play games, I'd be ready. The next morning, I overheard Patricia's voice coming from Jack's home office. She was on speakerphone. I think Lisa's using cancer as an excuse to avoid family gatherings. Have you noticed how she's always too tired for events? And Jessica asked about you the other day. Her words cut through me like knives. Later that week, my assistant called. Mrs. Mitchell, your mother-in-law canceled the Johnson House showing. She said you were too ill to make it. My blood ran cold. 3 canceled appointments in a month, all major listings without my consent. As Rachel helped me organize my medications that afternoon, she held up a nearly empty bottle. Where are your pain meds? This bottle's almost empty, but you barely touched it. We inspected the pills closely. They weren't my prescribed medication. They were over-the-counter vitamins, carefully swapped to look like my pain pills. Then came another bombshell. A text from Kate, Jack's cousin. Can we meet for coffee? Alone. At the cafe, Kate's hands shook as she slid her phone across the table. Lisa, I need to confess something. Mom's been pressuring me to help get Jack and Jessica back together. She says you're faking everything. But then I found these in her purse. On the screen were photos of prescription bottles, dozens of them, with names from different doctors. Later that night, Rachel called. Look what I found. 3 restraining orders against Patricia from former in-laws. And get this, James, Kate's ex, reached out to me on LinkedIn. The pieces were falling into place. James called me himself. Lisa, you need to know what you're dealing with. Patricia destroyed my marriage to Kate. She stole my anxiety meds, spread rumors about abuse, even hacked Kate's email to send fake messages to my boss. I lost everything. Jack came home late again, looking tense. Mom showed me some concerning texts from your phone. What texts, Jack? She's lying. She's just worried about you. About us. Maybe you should stay with Amanda for a while. That night, I couldn't sleep. Scrolling through old family photos on social media, I noticed a disturbing pattern. Every serious relationship Jack or Kate had ended mysteriously, always with Patricia at the center. Rachel, I need your help, I said the next morning. We need more than just documentation. Rachel's voice was steel. Already on it. I've been recording everything and saving screenshots. And James sent something interesting. Patricia's old arrest record. Prescription fraud, 10 years ago. It all made sense now. The stolen medication, the canceled appointments, the constant undermining. Patricia wasn't just controlling. She was a manipulative, dangerous woman with a history. We need to be smart about this, Rachel warned. One wrong move, and she'll twist it around. Trust me, Lisa, that woman's going down. Rachel's voice was a lifeline as she helped load the last box into her car. While Jack was at work, I left the evidence neatly stacked on his desk. Photos, videos, testimonies, prescription records, everything. 3 days later, my phone exploded with notifications. Jack's voice trembled when he called. Lisa, I'm so sorry. I was blind. Mom's been arrested. The police found oxycodone prescriptions in her house under 10 different names, and she used my social security number to open credit cards. There's so much debt. I stayed silent for a moment, then replied, Did you also find the videos of her mocking my cancer or the proof she sabotaged my business? Kate called next, crying. Lisa, the police uncovered emails Patricia manipulated. She twisted every conversation between James and me. Our entire divorce was based on her lies. The family group chat that once mocked me became a support group for Patricia's victims. Former in-laws came forward with similar stories. Her once flawless facade crumbled under the weight of lawsuits. A week later, one of Patricia's old bridge club friends approached me at the grocery store. Miss Mitchell, we're all disgusted by what she did. To you, to everyone. She's not welcome in our circles anymore. My last chemotherapy session felt like a personal victory. My hair grew back stronger, just like me. My real estate business thrived, bolstered by clients who admired my resilience and honesty. Lisa, please, I've changed. Can we try again? Jack's text went unanswered. You deserve better than someone who didn't believe you, Kate told me over coffee. We've grown close, healing together. Kate smiled shyly. I'm getting married again next month, to James. We'd love for you to come. Mom's not invited, obviously. Last week, I organized a charity event for cancer survivors. While greeting guests, I met someone new. He listened to my story, not with pity, but with understanding. Karma got her good, Rachel said, scrolling through her phone. Patricia's mugshot had made the local news, attached to multiple fraud charges and jail time. Her reputation was in shambles. I touched my now full head of hair, remembering that humiliating barbecue. You know what, Rachel? When she pulled off my wig, she actually did me a favor. She showed me exactly who my real support system was. The doorbell rang, and I found a bouquet of flowers waiting for me. The card read, "Congratulations on the downtown office expansion." It was from Kate and James. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's rising above, succeeding, and living your best life while toxic people self-destruct. Patricia's in jail, her lies exposed, her reputation ruined. Meanwhile, I'm thriving, cancer-free, with a booming business and surrounded by genuine love. What about you? If you caught your mother-in-law going through your private medical records, would you confront her immediately or gather evidence quietly like I did? Would you tell your spouse right away or wait until you had solid proof? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how you'd handle a breach of trust like this. If my story resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about overcoming toxic relationships and standing up for yourself. Remember, your health battles are your story to tell. No one has the right to expose them before you're ready.